Alright, so this video is a remake of this video right here. It needs to be remade because some recent information came out that was actually brought to me by TikTok, if you can believe it, indicating to me that when the definition was changed back in June of 2020 when I made this video, somebody pointed out to me that the original definition was actually put back on Google, and I was shocked. So now I know that the Google definition was changed twice, and I really don't know the reason, but I want to just talk over everything again from the beginning and make sure that everything, makes a lot more sense, and we cover the changes and why the changes were made. So in that original video, this is the article I had read. Before we get into it, let me just talk about some of the older points and make sure we got everything cleared up. So, first of all, I made a video a while back called The True Meaning of Racism, which you should check out, but it's basically a video where I talk about what SJWs think racism is and what it actually is. And for anybody who doesn't know, because everything's been changed around so many times, I wouldn't be surprised if you forgot, but basically, the real definition of racism always has and always will be prejudice and discrimination of somebody, anybody, including white people, based on their skin color. SJWs believe, as of about 2014, that racism is institutional, natural power, or systems of oppression. This is the reason, by the way, like this is the literal exact reason why SJWs think that all white people are naturally racist, because they believe that white people have more power, despite modern facts showing the complete opposite. So they believe all white people are naturally racist, right? But it's important to point out, of course, that even if it was about natural power, it isn't. But even if it was, whites still wouldn't be racist, because today, whites have less power than black people, a point that I've proven repeatedly. I also have a video here that you should check out called The Only Way to End Racism. This is a very important video where I basically talk about all this kind of stuff, but I talk about if we ever want the race war to stop, the political differences, right-wingers hating left-wingers, left-wingers hating right-wingers, SJW, BLM craziness, and all this stuff, I talk about in this video how to actually end it, because there really only is one way, and I figured it out. Check out this video for that, by the way. But what is interesting is that back in June of 2020, the definition of racism actually did change, and this is why I'm talking about this, because at first, people thought it would only be changed within the SJW culture, but not within the actual dictionary. However, the prediction I made, which by the way, I made this prediction in 2016, I predicted that from day one, the dictionary itself would actually change it by essentially caving into woke culture, as everyone has, from businesses and Hollywood to companies and logos and now even the fucking dictionary. So they actually did change it because one lunatic SJW woke idiot university student, shocker, asked them to. Shocker, right? She's black. Further proof of the power that black people have. If a white person ever requested a change, they'd be ignored and shamed, and you know it's true. What makes it more interesting, though, is that I may have been right in my prediction that it would change, but I was wrong about one thing. I thought it would at least take the entire SJW culture to do it, not just one person. Now I want to talk about why this change was so bad when it happened, and why it's bad to even think this, because again, the change happened in June of 2020, but SJWs have been wanting it since 2014. And even long before the change, I've been saying over and over and over again that it's a very dangerous and damaging thing to say, that it's natural. Racism has always been a choice, and it always will be. It is not something natural, and that includes systemic power. There's a reason why parents used to, tell their kids not to ever judge other kids at school based on what they look like or what their skin color is. Parents taught their kids this because they knew it was fucking racist to do so. And it's important, when kids go to school, to not judge classmates and stuff based on what their classmates look like. And it's why kids usually make friends with anybody, because they're not racist yet until their parents teach them to be. But unfortunately today, racism is encouraged, but only if it's against white people. White people are judged just for being white. And that's disgusting. That is literal fucking racism. But because of the world we live in, the culture we live in, It's actually considered racist if you don't judge white people because they want you to do it. That's the world we live in. And that's why it's so dangerous these days. That's why people are so divided, because everyone's attacking white people just for being white, and white people are sitting there like, I didn't fucking do anything. But eventually we're going to get angry, and that's what happens in our world. It's literally what caused the race war. Check out my video on the race war. Unfortunately now, though, I guess parents have to tell their kids, too bad, son, you're a racist now just for being born white, you bigot. Isn't that lovely? I wonder how many parents have actually said that. Here's the thing, though. Don't get me wrong. I actually kind of understand why an idiot might want systemic oppression combined with the word racism. It's because a racist system is still, racist, despite being a system. So, choice or not, a racist system is still racist. But here's the thing. Instead of changing the definition, you could just add systemic oppression or institutional racism into the dictionary as its own separate new entry entirely, and then add the definition you want. But that would make too much sense. Here's the thing, though, about that woman, and we know that wasn't your intent. Your intent is to make the belief that all whites are racist from birth the definition. And here's the thing. Doesn't she or any dumb person understand how dangerous it is to combine them? You trick people into believing that all whites are naturally racist because in our world of woke morons and critical race theory, stupid university kids are being brainwashed into believing that those systems you speak of are created by whites or benefit whites. So when you combine the definition of racism and institutional racism together, that's what causes morons to believe all whites are racist naturally. And that's why they should be separate. Racism is a choice, but a system isn't. With that being said, I want to talk about the fact that it was changed twice and the reason why. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you type in racism on Google, it actually does say prejudice, discrimination, or the antagonism of a person based on their skin color. Now, this is so weird because I know for a fact that a couple years ago, especially after this woman demanded the change, it did say institutional power. 100% no question asked, it did say that, okay? What you're seeing here is the real definition. Well, almost, with the exception of this stupidity. Like, if we're talking about modern day, it's actually typically directed towards white people, but I'll let it go because we could be talking about history as a whole, I guess. But if we are talking about modern definitions, it's actually typically towards white people, not minorities and marginalized people. Regardless, it did say institutional power after the woman made her, idiotic claims, right? Granted, I haven't checked Google's definition in a few months, but when I checked recently, all of a sudden, it's back to the real definition. I don't know why this change happened. I don't know when this change happened. And here's the interesting thing, by the way. The definition that Google is using is not just written from Google. It's actually directly posted there from Webster. Now, here's the definition from Webster. Number 1, this is the one talking about, superiority of somebody based on skin color, the real definition. And if you scroll down to number 2, this is where it says the systemic stuff. Now, number 2, this is the definition that the idiotic woman was talking about. Now, you might say, well, Matt, how is it a change if it's still there? My point is that what Google is showing is not the second definition. They're showing the first one now. So, I don't know. It's not a big deal because now they're showing the real definition, but I'm just wondering why it happened in the first place. And here's the interesting thing. I found a video of her actually talking about it. It's this video here. We'll watch it in a minute, but check this out, though. Somebody in the comments, because I'm not the only one, by the way. It looks like somebody in the comments also noticed the same thing I did, that it was changed for a little while back in June of 2020, and then they changed it back. Again, I don't know when, but the only proof I have, because I didn't screenshot it like an idiot, the only proof I have is that I'm not the only person who noticed. Regardless, let's check out the video and see what they have to say.
History books will document the killing of George Floyd as a defining moment. Kennedy Mitchum uses one word:
racism.
Okay, time to debunk this stupidity. Now, I'm not saying racist cops don't exist. Not saying that. And I'm also not saying that there might be some systems in place that cause racism or cause cops to be racist. But you're just wrong to say that. I do agree that the cop who killed George was racist, but, and I know you'll never acknowledge this because you're black, but what do you call the cop who killed Tony Timpa in the exact same way as George Floyd, except worse? As I said before, the only differences between George Floyd and Tony Timpa is that the cops were laughing at him. So we can safely say that Tony Timpa had it worse than George, yet nobody talked about Tony because his skin is white. And it was done by a white cop. So they did almost the exact same thing to George, not as bad to George, but you're claiming racism even though Tony was white and so was the cop. So I think we should just go with the more accurate explanation here. It's not just racism, it's also about authoritarian privilege, and cops have that.
To describe the root cause of what ended his life. And that word, racism, will have a revised definition on merriam-webster's dictionary.
Yeah, and it did, but all of a sudden it's gone. What the fuck?
Used to systems and
Again, I'm not mad, I'm just pointing out that it's gone.
power not really understanding.
Mitchum, a 22-year-old from Missouri, is behind the change. She sent an
One woman.
email to the editors addressing her concerns.
I asked for them to add in systemic oppression.
Again, just like I said earlier, why couldn't this have been its own separate entry, instead of convincing morons that white people are systemic, they're doing it naturally, from birth? Like, fuck off.
In the definition and not just have it, redefine prejudice all over again. It's in a lot of these systems you see today. It's in the healthcare field, it's in the legal systems, and it is oppression against one group of people.
Merriam
Oh, it's against one group. Yeah. I think what you mean to say is, it's against one group that I actually want to pay attention to.
Webster's current definition highlighted prejudice due to the color of a person's skin.
Correct.
In an email, the Drake University graduate wrote in part, racism is prejudice combined with social and institutional power.
No, it isn't. It is just a choice based on skin color. The other stuff you're saying about institutions and systems should be its own separate definition. Okay, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying put it as a separate thing because you're in two different planets here.
Mitchum said her classmates would use the dictionary's definition of racism to discredit her truth.
Oh, poor you. Your classmates would use facts to dismiss your opinion. Well, how fucking dare they? You know how Matt's FTR feels about the phrase your truth. I prefer the truth. Just like your classmates. And by the way, for those of you out there who think that I'm being a little overdramatic about the whole combining definitions thing, maybe this will help you. Let me show you what the ADL defines racism as. Racism is the marginalization and or oppression of people of color, apparently just them, based on a socially constructed racial hierarchy that privileges white people. Any rational person doesn't even need me to explain it. That, right there, the definition that's sitting right there, is literally racist. And isn't it funny that this comes from the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, despite the fact that this right here is racism towards white people and defamation towards white people. The fucking irony. Now do you get it? Moving on now to the original article I read 2 years ago, I just wanted to point out a couple things that I've written here that were not in the video. You're so adamant on pointing out the whole thing about it's a system of advantages based on skin color, so are you going to talk about all the systems in place that advantage black people? Such as media protection whenever a black person kills somebody, or affirmative action, or the fact that white crime is inflated, but black crime is deflated. Is that not a system that benefits you? But you're not going to talk about it, right? You're only going to talk about the systems that benefit white people, not the systems that benefit you. Ah, I got it. We have concluded that omitting any mention of the systemic aspects of racism promotes a certain viewpoint. Yeah, you mean the viewpoint of facts or something? Like one of those terrible, evil facts? There are so many systems that benefit black people. But here's the interesting thing again that I need to point out. That if you're only going to mention the systems that benefit white people, you are literally gearing your viewpoint to be hateful towards white people. Because there are systems out there that actually benefit different people. There are systems that benefit black people, benefit white people, benefit Indian people, benefit whatever. But your definition is only going to talk about those white systems that benefit whites or hurt black people. If you're going to have racism as a broad term for everybody, but include the whole system thing, you may want to talk about every system. But we know you're not going to do that, and that's how I know you're full of shit. It will leave some questioning whether there is a place for activism in the dictionary. Okay, if you needed any more proof that they're full of shit, there it is right there. There's your proof that it's full of shit. The dictionary is meant for defining words. That's it. The fact that you want the fucking dictionary to be a place for activism proves that you're full of shit. That's the direct evidence. But anyway, that's all I had to say about this insanity. Like I said, it's weird that it was changed twice, but I am glad that the real definition is back, and I do wonder what the hell happened to her.